Welcome to episode 93 on the Law Report. In today's episode, we're going to discuss the matter where another American citizen, another tourist to the Turks and Caicos Islands, was sentenced today to 3 weeks imprisonment, time served, and a fine of $9,000 for possession of 2 rounds of ammunition. It is alleged that the ammunition was found in his bag at the cruise ship port in Grand Turk, and it would appear that he came through security checks in America without these 2 rounds of ammunition being discovered. The court, in his case, found that there were exceptional circumstances to depart from the 12 years minimum mandatory sentence, and thus he was fined and sentenced to time served, which means that after paying the fine, he's free to leave the Turks and Caicos Islands. So, despite the media campaign by the American media, American citizens, and even the political class in their criticism of these arrests in the Turks and Caicos Islands, doomsday has not descended upon us. The sky has not fallen down. The judiciary and the judicial system stood firm and delivered, in my view, a very fair and just sentence. Just last week, we had another tourist who was found with 20 rounds of ammunition at the Providenciales airport, was given a suspended 1-year sentence and fined $6,700. In my view, that fine was on the low side, but overall, the sentence was fair and just, in my respectful opinion. Now, what concerns me here is the amount of citizens from America who are coming to the Turks and Caicos Islands and who are slipping through the TSA security checks in America at the airport with ammunition in their luggage, and they are not being detected. Something has to be wrong with the American security system at the airport, and that is cause for concern. In fact, it is alarming, and it's something that the Americans should actually look into. Now, in order for the judge to find, in my view, exceptional circumstances, the judge would have to accept that the defendants in the case last week and in this case inadvertently brought the ammunition into the Turks and Caicos Islands, which means that the Crown was not able to disprove that these ammunition were indeed brought into the Turks and Caicos Islands inadvertently. In another episode, I would outline what I would have done if I were a police officer investigating these incidents to ensure that these ammunition were indeed brought into the Turks and Caicos Islands, and to dispel any reasonable belief that these tourists could have actually acquired these ammunition in the Turks and Caicos Islands and were then trying to take it back to the United States of America. That's a possibility. But that would take some very intense and detailed investigation, which I will go into in another episode. So, in spite of the Americans trying to interfere in the judicial system in the Turks and Caicos Islands, trying to put pressure on the executive to interfere with the judiciary, trying to put pressure on the legislature to interfere with the judicial process in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I'm happy that those efforts were actually resisted, that the executive stood firm, that the legislature stood firm, and allowed the judiciary, which should be truly independent, to do its work. And in doing so, the judiciary has arrived at a very fair and just sentence in the circumstances. Now, I know a lot of people now in the Turks and Caicos Islands, a lot of residents, will be looking to see how residents of the Turks and Caicos will be sentenced in the future, given that these tourists who are afforded exceptional circumstances and the sentence was such that they did not have to serve a day in jail. Well, every case will turn on its own merits and its own facts. And I don't believe that someone living in the Turks and Caicos Islands or residents of the Turks and Caicos Islands or citizens of the Turks and Caicos Islands could actually replicate these very facts that these tourists found themselves in. Because as I understood it, these persons were firearm holders in their respective states in the United States of America, entitled to possess these rounds of ammunition, and brought them inadvertently into the Turks and Caicos Islands. That would be different than someone living in the Turks and Caicos Islands and being found in possession of ammunition or firearm. Because, in my view, there are only two defenses for possession of firearm or ammunition in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Either you have a license to hold or to keep the ammunition or firearm, or it's one of denial, that it's not mine, it's a mistake, it was planted, there's no connection between me and the firearm and the ammunition. So the facts and circumstances will be completely different, and I don't foresee a person in the Turks and Caicos Islands who is a resident being charged for possession of firearm ammunition in the Turks and Caicos Islands. It is difficult for me to envision the circumstances in which we will be able to argue exceptional circumstances and similar facts as was presented in these cases. The circumstances, in my view, be vastly different, and their arguments in order to move the court for exceptional circumstances would be fundamentally different. It probably would have to be a scenario where someone probably walking on the beach and absent-mindedly pick up a rung of ammunition and took it home without giving much thought to it, and months later the police discover it in their home. In a scenario like that, I believe they can argue exceptional circumstances, but it will be very difficult for someone to argue exceptional circumstances replicating these facts in these cases where these American citizens have been charged for possession of ammunition. So the justice system, once again, has delivered. It works. There are those who believe that it do not always work. They're entitled to their opinion. But it is heartening for me that the sky did not fall down, or doomsday did not descend on us, as the American media would have you to believe. Because let's face it, the issue that the Americans really have is that they don't believe that Americans should be subject to the laws of the countries that they visit. They believe that when they travel outside of America, that the American Constitution covers them, and they're only subject to American laws because they're superior citizens of this world. That is not so. You're subject to the laws of the country that you visit, and that is the law that you should obey at the time while you're residing or visiting that country. Here's where I'm going to leave this episode for today. Please like, please share, please comment, and if you like anything that I say in this episode, give it a thumbs up, and if you disagree, give it a thumbs down. But I'll see you very shortly in another episode. Cheers.